One-Way Street podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Wong, and this podcast is dedicated to self-discovery and personal growth that will help you find your personal GPS. Life, as we know, can be unpredictable. And when the path we thought we were meant to follow takes unexpected turns, it's time to recalibrate those turns and discover endless possibilities. Join us on the One-Way Street podcast today to find your true direction. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome back. So I'm recording this the first week of May, and May happens to be Asian Pacific Heritage Month. If you haven't figured out by the name of my podcast, I am Asian. I am Chinese. I am an American. I'm an Asian American. I was born and raised in New York by my immigrant parents from China, and throughout my life, I experienced different phases of being Asian. I hate to admit this now, but when I was a child, into my teens, I was ashamed to be Asian. Growing up in the 70s, there were very few people that looked like me, and there were certainly none that looked like me on television. And I think we can all agree that as a child, we just wanted to fit in. But it's really tough when you're in a classroom, you happen to be Asian, your last name is Wong, and let's add to the fact that I had Coke bottle glasses and Farrah Fawcett permed hair. That's a lot to deal with growing up. I remember I used to hate history class because I was afraid of any discussions that would come up that was related to China. And when it did, I remember sinking low into my seat with my head down, and I could feel the stares coming my way. And to add to my discomfort, my parents had a laundry store in town, of course, in between a pizzeria and a candy store where all kids would hang out, and they had a huge sign in neon lights, and it said, Wong's Chinese Laundry. So all that attention was hard to ignore or to run away from. There was a show I had seen a couple months ago, and this Asian girl had said something that hit me really hard. She said, when I was a kid, I used to stare at my face in the mirror, and I wondered if I could use my mom's makeup to make me look more American, more white. I wanted to be like other kids. I wanted to feel normal, like I belonged. Man, that hit me hard because I felt the same way when I was a kid. I just wanted to fit in. I just wanted to belong. Again, I feel bad for saying this now as an adult, but I was ashamed at the time. I struggled with these feelings, and it was something I couldn't bring back to my parents. In the Asian culture, you don't talk about these things. You just go to school, don't get into trouble, and bring home good grades. That was our job. And because I couldn't talk to my parents about this, I had to deal with this myself. I had to deal with it internally, which I did. And it did get easier as I got older. I started to meet more people that looked like me. And I soon accepted me for who I am. And as I got older in my 30s and 40s, I started to learn more about my ancestors. I wasn't interested when I was in my teens. But as I got older, I became more interested in my family's history, learning about my parents, my grandparents, and their struggles. I learned that my mother, her mother, which is my grandmother, and her siblings, and where they had to escape from their home in World War II and live in the mountains. They had to run from village to village. They were in survival mode. Eventually, my grandfather was able to bring the entire family over to the U.S. safe and sound. My parents met in the U.S., and despite having very little money, education, or having very little knowledge of English, they provided for us. They worked hard to provide for us. And they supported me and my brothers through college and helped us with our first homes. Learning of my parents and my family's sacrifices made me proud to be Asian. What they did for us, I can't imagine how we could do that today, not knowing the language and having very little resources. But my parents never focused on the struggle. They only focused on providing for the family. Now, fast forward to 2020, my third phase. I'm afraid to be Asian. Watching the Asian hate unfold on television, on social media, and hearing stories from people that went through verbal abuse, that went through physical abuse. Why is this happening? We are just as an American as everyone else. Now, the numbers of Asian hate crimes were underreported. It was only a fraction of what the truth is. Do you know why? It's because Asians lack a voice. They don't want anything reported. They don't want anybody to know. They don't want the attention. To them, they will just move on quietly. They don't have a voice. They don't want to speak up. Now, I didn't fear for myself, but I feared for my 85-year-old mother. My mom was an active 85-year-old. She walked, she did her Tai Chi, she shopped, she socialized. And now we have to say to her, Mom, you can't leave the house. You can't even go across the street to buy groceries. We struggled with this because we just couldn't understand why this was happening. How did I go from being ashamed to being proud to now being afraid? Now, it's 2023, and this is what I see now. Where Asians didn't have a voice, I see that they are finally speaking up. The old version of keeping quiet is slowly disappearing. I see the younger generation now speaking up for us. And I see more Asian representation in media. Now I even see Asians winning Oscars. We're finally making a mark. We finally belong. My current phase is I see hope. I see beautiful stories of resilience. I see strength. And I finally see that we are having a voice that we are no longer afraid to use. And now we have others that are not Asian helping us have that voice. I'm glad I am no longer ashamed of being Asian. I am truly proud of who I am and where I came from. So much so that I named my e-commerce my Chinese name Lai, and I named this podcast with my last name Wong. Listen, in the end, we are all a different color, and we are all a different shade of our own color. But just like a rainbow, when those colors are together and they connect, we can be just as beautiful. Thank you for joining us today. We hope that our conversations have inspired you to embrace the detours on your life's journey. Trust that the road ahead is full of endless possibilities. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. See you again soon.